Okay, so we've just finished our weekly webinar with the partners across the country, and this podcast is entirely for your benefit to share some of the learnings and what we've covered on today's webinar. So, in the post-Easter lull, shall we say, most people were expressing in their the start to their the webinar that they were keen to sink their teeth into work to get cracking after some people took as much as 2 weeks off for Easter, which I think is fab, especially given the weather we've had. But the key is to hit the ground running now that we're on the 24th of April and are back into 5-day weeks and making the most of your property business. So, the focus of this morning's webinar was profit generating activities, which we have spoken about before on the podcast. In a nutshell, I did a quick poll on how many hours people worked last week, and it was quite variable from 15 odd hours up to, I think one person was on 35, 40 hours. So, a very variable from part-time, definitely part-time, all the way across to full-time on their property businesses. The next question was quite telling though, and that was how many hours as a percentage of your working week did you spend on profit generating activities? So when we're talking about profit generating activities, we're talking about marketing activities, sales activities, delivery activities that are actually operations, if you like, that are going to bring money into the business. So all the stuff that's going to generate you a profit. Things that aren't profit generating are administration. Now, it doesn't mean these aren't essential or important, but they don't directly affect your bottom line. Administration, managing team, filing, responding to other people's demands, emails, unless they fall into marketing or sales, etc. So the results were quite remarkable. We had a real array. We had a third of the partners had done less than 2 hours of profit generating activities in the last week, which is phenomenally low. And results will reflect that. We had a third at between 6 and 10 hours of profit generating activities, which I think is pretty good, especially if you're only working 15, 20 hours. And then a third of people, I'm approximating here, spent over 15 hours on profit generating activities in the week. Now, those people that are spending 15 quality hours focused on bringing money into their property business, they are the ones who are going to achieve the results that they've set themselves. They're going to achieve the goals that they've laid out for 2017. And so we looked at some of the examples. We had one person, one of the partners, spent 80% of his week on marketing and sales, which is really going to show in his results. We had other people at 70, 50%. And then we did some coaching, some one-on-one coaching on one partner that was at 7%. We looked into why that was, and what we discovered was that she was focusing. Well, the problem was that she wasn't focusing. The problem was she was allowing external events to overcome her working week. So she's very responsive at the moment, very in the habit of firefighting and dealing with what's coming up. The problem was that she isn't, or last week at least, wasn't prioritising what she needed to do in order to bring money into her business. She was being blown around by the winds of external factors, if you like. So what I did is I did a session with her on where we should be focusing our energies and how we should be bringing money into our business most effectively. In fact, I'll use this board behind me to exemplify. So, if you imagine that you've got, let's take that off. If you imagine that you've got a sales funnel, like this. So this is your sales funnel, and out of the bottom of your sales funnel is going to drop your profit. So you've got your profit coming out at the bottom, and then at various stages of your sales funnel. So in this instance, we're talking about properties, but it could be investors, it could be marketing for tenants. It really doesn't matter. But let's talk about properties and vendors for this exercise. Up here, you've got leads. So these are people that have responded to your marketing. They are interested in selling their property to you or selling through you, but you haven't yet responded to them. So you've got your leads at the top, and obviously you've got lots of those. Then you might have your prospects here, and you've obviously got less prospects than you have leads because you contact all of your leads. Some people say they're not interested, so they fall out of your funnel, and then others say, yes, I'm interested, I'll sell to you. So you've got less of those, and then an element or a number of those, a proportion of those, will actually go ahead with you. So let's call those sign-ups. So people who've signed up and you're going through conveyancing with them and you're in the process of purchasing their property. Now, where people tend to spend their or focus their energies is up here. They feel like they need more leads or they need more deals, so they focus their energies up here. The problem is, if you focus all your energy up here, it takes a long time to get paid because you have to move them down the sales funnel until you make your money down here. So it's always better to focus your major energies here at the bottom of the sales funnel so that you get paid quickly from them, and then make your way up. You still make sure you follow up on all your prospects, you still make sure you get back to all of your leads, but you need to focus at the bottom of your sales funnel. So that particular partner who only spent 7% of her time on profit generating activities last week, she had actually signed or met with a vendor and agreed heads of terms with the vendor and was at the stage of being ready to instruct solicitors, but hadn't actually contacted that vendor at all last week. That is a clear avoidance of the low-hanging fruit, avoidance of the quick win, and instead she's phoning new prospective vendors whom she's never spoken to before. So it's important to keep a focus on where to invest your profit generating activities. So that was one of the things we covered on the webinar. We also looked at marketing strategies. So some of our partners are only using 2 or 3 marketing strategies for vendors, and my argument against that is that you're putting a lot of your eggs in very few baskets. Also, not every vendor wants to be contacted in the same manner. Different marketing strategies will speak and reach out to different types of vendors. We all know the rule of thumb that each vendor needs to hear from you on average 7 times before they'll sell their house to you. And so if you can get a multifaceted marketing strategy rocking and rolling, then you're much more likely to get huge numbers of vendors responding to you. So most of our partners are using 2, 3 or 4 strategies. One of our partners is using 10 strategies. So what we looked at was how she had developed those 10 strategies, how she uses them on a regular basis and the results that she's getting from them. Just to share with you the 10 strategies, I thought you might be interested in them. She uses postcards in post offices and news agents, little A5 cards, I think it's A5, but postcard size adverts, handwritten and word process. She delivers leaflets direct to all households, even if they're not on the market. She has big A3 and A2 boards up in post offices, so when people are queuing for the post office, the board is up there above their head, and would you like to sell your house, etc. She buys leads from sources. She has instigated or is in the process of instigating a referral what's the word, referral scheme, I guess, whereby when she buys a house from a vendor, she gives them 10 tokens, and the tokens they break off, so they're like two sides of a postcard, so I think that's A5, and then it's perforated and she rips it off, and the top bit is a bit about her that they can give to their friend or family member, and the bottom bit tells them that they are due £1,000 referral fee if that person goes ahead with them. So she's instigated that. She's also sending a number of direct letters to different types of potential vendors. So she's writing to the HMO list in her town. She's also, so that's the council list of HMO properties. She's also using our scraping tool. So we have a tool, a piece of software that scrapes all the properties that are on Rightmove and on Zoopla for over 12 months. So all these stagnant properties that are stuck on the market. We email out, and if any of you guys on the podcast are interested in finding out about this, we can email you a spreadsheet of all the properties in your area on a monthly basis that have been on the market for over a year. And so this particular partner writes direct letters to those. She has it systemized so that it doesn't take a load of time, but she automates those letters going out to those properties saying, if you're interested in selling, I can buy from you. Here's how it might work. So there's a few of the 10 marketing strategies that she's using. And to be honest, so long as you're using, I'd say at least 7 of those, and it doesn't. That's all for below market value properties. But some of our partners are doing service combinations. Some are doing rent to rent. Some are doing development and land deals, land assembly, planning gain. Is a strategy that a few are using. It doesn't really matter on what you're looking for in terms of land, property, control of properties, purchasing properties, market value, below market value, so long as you are using multiple marketing strategies to reach those potential vendors. If you want help on that, feel free to get in touch, and I'll happily help you in your situation. We then moved on to the deal surgery. We covered 2 deals today. The first one was a below market value property in Manchester. Now, this property had already been sold, in inverted commas, to a national house buying company. I shan't name them. They started off at £70,000 for the property. That's what they offered. The vendor said yes. 2 and a bit months later, the same company were offering £35,000, and the swift purchase within a few weeks that they promised clearly wasn't happening because it's already been going on for 10 plus weeks. They received a leaflet from the partner, the Frank partner in Manchester, and the deal's been agreed, although the vendor is concerned about any documentation that they've signed up with this national company. So what our partner's going to do is they're going to sit down, they're going to go through all the paperwork. We'll probably take legal advice on it, but in a nutshell, all of the if it were ever to go to court, all of the power, if you like, or the leaning of the judge would be towards the vendor, because the vendor's the unsophisticated party. The vendor's the one that's been sold to. The vendor's probably doing this for the first time ever. And then on the other side, you've got the judge weighing up the big, bad property investment company that's offered this, dropped their price, not delivered on how long it took. So even if there's an option in place, we think that we'll be able to support the vendor to nullify that or exit that option, given that it probably wasn't taken under legal advice by the vendor, and it was probably signed in the vendor's own home by a salesperson from the national company. So we were just exploring where the vendor stands and how can we protect the vendor from being sued if they sell to us. It's very important to us that the vendor doesn't end up in a situation where they sell to us and then owe this other company money. So we will walk the vendor through that and ensure that at no point are they exposed to a potential lawsuit afterwards. The second example or second deal that we looked at on the deal surgery was a property in or a land deal in London. And this was an interesting scenario because you've got the vendor, the vendor's ex-husband, and the vendor's ex-brother-in-law. And all three are on the title of the property. There's £1.5 million worth of lending on the property. And the partner in London the Frank partner in London is looking to JV with the vendor, add planning to the site, build out the site, and then sell it on without having had to buy and then sell the property. So it's an assisted sale of sorts, or a vendor finance flip, if you're familiar with those terminologies. The problem is that twofold actually. One, the husband or the ex-husband and the ex-brother-in-law aren't as keen to come off the title and cut themselves out from any potential profits as the vendor hoped. So there's probably going to need to be some financial incentive there. And secondly, the mortgage lender won't allow them just to be taken off the mortgage. So we're going to have to leave them on the mortgage until the deal is completely wrapped up and is sold on at the end. So we're looking at two potential solutions. One is an exchange of contracts now that ties in the ex-husband and the ex-brother-in-law legally, or a limited power of attorney which gives us permission to sell the property, sign for those two parties for the duration of the transaction, so that we know that they're not going to pull out or demand more money, etc. But at the moment, it all hinges on them because the vendor's not in a position to refinance, and so we need to stay with the current lender and work with the ex-husband and the ex-brother-in-law. So never a dull moment, always challenges. But as we said on the webinar this morning, if it was easy, the success wouldn't be as juicy at the end. And if you look at the quote for today, this is by an anonymous source. Difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. And how I like to think of it is, every time I have to jump over a challenge or find a solution to a problem, some of my competitors give up. Some of them don't make it over the hurdle or don't bother to find a workaround. And so each time we overcome an obstacle, we improve the playing field for ourselves, because there are less of our competitors vying for the deals. So have a productive week, enjoy your week, and if we can help in any way, do get in touch with the Frank Partnership. God bless.